not by any means a bad song, but it's basically just built around 2 chords. There's not a lot of movement there. There's not that much variety with the melody in terms of the instrumental. And when I was writing it, it took me quite a while. It wasn't that efficient. And these are the 3 main things I wanted to improve on throughout this whole project. So back to week 2, I wanted to learn my inversions. I watched this video which just went over some information, and I'll quickly just talk about some of the things I learned from there. So the question that I asked myself and I eventually understood was, inversions are essentially just different ways of playing chords across the fretboard. They pair with voice leadings, which is essentially changing a note's position in the chord. This is a nice way of creating like an embedded melody into the chord. The method that he taught was he played all of these different inversions in a vertical fashion, and what this meant was he used the first 3 frets of the guitar, and instead of going horizontal, you went up across the string, up to the top strings, and this allowed for you could play them in a smaller space and transition a lot quicker. So this is just a quick demonstration now, and a bit of an explanation, going into a bit more detail of what I learned and how I implemented this. So from watching that video, I learned how to play all the inversions of C across the fretboard. In the video, he taught me how to play in vertical and horizontal fashions. I'm going to be just going through the vertical fashion because I found this a lot easier, it fit my style of playing and writing a lot more, and I like the way you can transition from the chords by playing in this way. So these are all the inversions of C played in a vertical fashion across the fretboard. And then we can just go back to the root. So this can allow me to transition in different ways across the fretboard. For example, if I wanted to play a C root here, if I wanted to transition to the same chord but a different voicing or a different version of it, I can do that a lot more easily now because I know how to play all of the first inversions essentially just with these 3. All of those inversions with just these 3 frets, and that will go really across any part of the netboard, and that's really the benefit of learning in a vertical fashion. I'm going to do a quick demonstration now of just how I've implemented this and applied it to my songwriting ability by just showing a quick little chord progression, a little tune that I've created from using some of these concepts and some of these chords. So that little demonstration really just shows the introduction level that I took on inversions. So as a summary from week 2, I'd say I stuck to my plan quite exactly. My plan overall was to first research the tried inversions and practice them with the information that I learned. And as you can see from those videos, I did that quite well. I commented on the improvement this delivered to my songwriting. I talked about how I can transition to chords and create and embed melodies into my music by using voice lead-ins. And I've also delivered a demonstration of this as well. If I was going to do it again, I think my plan worked well. I could have added more tasks, so I could have learned about the augmented, diminished chords, and found out the inversions for those as well. So moving on to week 3, my focus for week 3 was cadences. This is a video I watched which essentially just talked through the different types of cadences and the chords required to, chord degrees required to make certain sounds, to end a phrase or continue a phrase forward. So for this I tried to experiment a little bit with the way I was studying and researching, and I actually created a kind of lesson style video. I chose to do it like this because I found I was actually making notes as I made the video. It was quite efficient, and as I recorded in this style I could articulate better, dictate, and as it felt like I was teaching it, also provided a resource I could then refer to if I needed the information later down the line. So that's just a quick lesson style video I've made on cadences with some demonstrations.
So in this video I'm just going to quickly talk about cadences and demonstrate what I've learned by both talking and playing through my examples of these cadences. So the first type of cadence I want to talk about is a perfect cadence. Now the perfect cadence goes from the 5 chord to the 1 chord. These can be major or minor, as all of the cadences. It depends on the context of the song. It really doesn't change the type of cadence or anything like that. So this perfect cadence, if the name doesn't give it away, is a finished cadence, meaning essentially that it's completely resolved and that's the end of the phrase. Here's a quick demonstration, and then I'm going to show you another type of finished cadence. So this next cadence is called the playable cadence. As I said, it's also finished, but instead of from the 5 to the 1, this goes from the 4 to the 1. Again, it can be either major or minor. Here is a quick demonstration of me playing the playable cadence on my guitar. Now these last 2 cadences are unfinished. This essentially just means that they request that the phrase goes elsewhere. It's just unfinished and unresolved, unlike the finished cadences. Now these 2 cadences, the first one is called the imperfect cadence, and this ends on the 5. So this can be from 1 to the 5, 2 to the 5, or the 4 to the 5. Mostly it just needs to end on the 5, and obviously there's major and minor variations of this as well. So here's just a quick demonstration of the imperfect cadence. Finally, this last cadence is called the deceptive cadence. Now, this is from the 5 to the 4, which brings a very unexpected kind of surprising sound. And again, this is an unfinished cadence. I quite like this one. It's quite unique and different. You wouldn't really, it doesn't seem like something you tend to want to go to naturally. And I think it's also something that if I used it while writing, I can imagine that I could take that, just ending on that 4 chord, I can go to other different places rather than ending the phrase there and make a lot more interesting kind of phrase or a chord progression from that. So here's just a quick demonstration of the deceptive cadence.
So that was just my quick demonstration of cadences. Quick summary of week 3. All in all, I think I stuck to my plan quite well. I think one thing I could have done is just made more notes before recording. While the way I recorded the videos in the lesson kind of format was helpful in my articulation, just getting the video done quickly, I think I could have gone into a lot more depth if I had planned my notes out a bit more beforehand. Another thing I think I could have done is probably demonstrate an implementation of these cadences by writing a chord progression with them or something like that. But I do like how I explored different methods of research and taking notes. The way I recorded the video, again, really helped me understand it better, and now I have something to refer to in the future. So, week 4, I wanted to learn and work on my knowledge on chord extensions. Before I started the year, I had a basic understanding of chord extension. I knew my 7th and major 7th chord shapes along the fretboard, and I had knowledge of basic composition of these chords. My plan now was to learn how to further create extended chords, so of the 7th chords, the 9th chords, the 11th and the 13th. So here's just a quick demonstration of where I was at before I started working on these. If it would work. Right, cracking on, the video's not working. So this is the video I watched on chord extension. Essentially all they taught me was when extending further, you just want to add thirds from the major scale on top of each other.
Alright, so for this week's lesson, Ellen,
So what I learned from the video as well is that essentially
This is a demonstration of that formula.
all you need to do really is add a third on top of the group or chords you have. So essentially, I'm trying to make a 7th chord here. I'll go with C major square. Break that whole scale down to the equal notes, so we know that that's the first. So that's going to be our root. Which we know on that note, 5th, and then obviously to make it C major 7, we'll go to the 7th as well. And what we've done there is I've just added a third on every time, so that's a quick formula that I learned from watching that video. Continuing on from that, so that was C major 7. If, let's say, I want to just make a C7 chord, it's essentially the same thing, except the 7th, which in our case, is simply flatted. So like that is
So yeah, that was a quick demonstration of chord extensions. Just to summarise, in that video I went through the 7th chords and also touched on how to go further and add 9s and things like that as well. What essentially you have to do again is add thirds on top of each other, and in some instances the 7th may need to be flatted. So here's just a video again, just recapping that and going into suspended chords as well.
So the trick video that when you're extending an 11th chord, you don't use the full chord together, you use the major. This is really what it isn't, because they're really a half step between. So what you do instead is you remove the third and you use the chord, which is like that. While I'm that with the thumb, that's how you get a sustain. So that's what we're going to play. So it's actually C9 sus4. It's essentially the same thing as C9.
So essentially what I talked about there is when creating a suspended chord or an 11th chord, you don't want to use the 3 and the 4 together if the 3 is major. I explained in the video that that's because they're dissonant. They're only a half step away from each other. So what you do instead is you replace the 3rd and you just use the 4th instead, or the 11th, which is what makes it an 11th chord or a suspended chord. So that was a C11 that I played at the end there. So here's just some quick examples of some extended chords that I learned through this method, through the formula and the suspended chord formula that I learned. So that was a C major 9. It's a C9. The chord is a C7. And that was a C13. And then finally the C major 7, which I was familiar with at the point anyway, but understanding now how to create those with an actual formula that I can keep in my brain and come back to really helps. So as a summary of week 4, I stuck to my plan quite well. I think it could have been a lot more thought out. I spent a lot of time on week 4. It was the longest part of my plan, and I think if I planned a bit more thoroughly and maybe created a timetable of some sort, it would have gone a lot quicker. I researched all my chord extension formula from the video that I watched. It taught me how to add thirds on top of each other from a major scale to extend chords further. I put these chords into practice and showed a demonstration, and I created a commentary video talking about what I learned about chord extensions and talking about my demonstrations as well. I did have a cover that's actually on my website, but I couldn't get it on my PowerPoint, and that was just really just to summarise the demonstration, the knowledge that I learned here. So for week 5, it was really just a final review of the project and how I took in the information and researched things. So I think what I did quite well was I like the way I experimented with different ways of researching with those videos that I made, where I did them in a lesson style format. I was struggling when I started with articulation of videos, and this was taking up a lot of time because it would take me really long to record some of the videos. It wasn't a very efficient way of working. So creating this format where I could essentially make notes as I was dictating really helped, and I started to do my videos a lot quicker from that point on. How have I improved? I'm going to show in a second a little demonstration of what I did at the end. I have some songwriting sessions on my website. They're far too long to put on here, but it's like half an hour of content where I essentially talked over me just writing a song, the process I go through, but this time implementing these skills into that. And you'll see in a second the improvement that's taken place from the first song I showed you to the how more sophisticated this is musically. What did I learn? I learned a lot about melodic composition when it comes to voice leadings. Again, this is something I demonstrate in my final project a lot. I think if there's one thing that I was most proud of learning, it was the voice leadings part of it. Does music theory help improve songwriting ability? So I'm going to show this video now of just a demonstration of my final project, and then go over a bit more on how this project helped with my composition skills. So that was just a quick composition that I wrote, predominantly using all of the skills and the knowledge that I learned throughout there. So let's just look quickly at how I implemented these skills. So you can hear a lot in this that there's a nice melody embedded to the chord sequence. This is due to the voice lead-ins. Essentially what I've done is I've been changing the notes and the chords and really driving the chord progression with the melody. And I think composition-wise, when writing an instrumental piece at least, it's very, you can notice it quite easily, and it adds a nice effect to it when there's a bit more depth in the melody. How has music theory improved my compositional skills? Well, you can see as well that I've used a lot more interesting chords there. Some of the extended chords I talked about earlier. The seventh chords and the ninth chords are playing a lot there, and I've really shown how to transition in between those chords as well. If I did it all again differently, I think I'd go into a bit more depth with some of the voice leading stuff. Again, I'd go into inversions of augmented and diminished chords and things like that, and see how we can implement those. I'd definitely plan a lot more thorough in the terms of writing more notes and maybe adding a kind of timetable to some of it. None of my plan was time-based, it was very much just, I'm going to do this first, then this, then that. And because of that, I sometimes felt quite behind on a lot of my work and had to play catch up a lot. And second from that, I'd probably write a vocal part to my final composition, and as well I would have explored some more vocal techniques and branched more from just the instrumental side, so I would have gone into harmony and things like that and used some of those concepts in vocal recording as well. So that was the end of my D8 project. Overall, I think there's a vast improvement that you can clearly see. I'm adding a lot more depth to my composition and songwriting.